You're listening to the Living Adventures podcast, a lifestyle podcast hosted by Ashely, Milky, and Victoria Vance. Tune in for a new episode every Thursday to hear our honest conversations about topics like freedom, creativity, spirituality, luxury living, health and wellness, and above all else, building community.
We have real and unfiltered conversations inspired by our search to feel connected to people who give a shit about us, support our dreams, and understand our struggles. Our mission is to provide you with the tools, guidance, and motivation to navigate any moment in your life with the lens of your neurodivergent mind, with a community who gets you. Adventure on. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Living Adventures podcast. It's your co-host here, Ashely Milky, with our other co-host,
Victoria Vance.
And we are always excited to be talking to you, but mostly excited because today we are talking about something that grinds our gears, that makes us mad, that should make you mad, and that is a mother effing lie. And that is all the reasons everyone says that we can't have it all in this lifetime, okay?
Yeah. And there's just so many rules that are just made up just to make you feel so small and so that you look for control in different areas. And it's just truly, it's not real. It's just made up.
I literally think the theme of this past year of my life has been everything is made up, the rules don't matter. It's like, did you ever watch Whose Line Is It Anyway on ABC Family, where that comedy sketch show? No, you didn't?
What?
Oh my God.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I am aging myself. It's called Whose Line Is It Anyway? And it was like...
I didn't have TV growing up, so...
Okay, so I'm not aging myself. We're basically the same age, kind of. Sasha would know this, so I don't feel that old, and she's your age.
Yeah.
But Whose Line Is It Anyway is like an improv show, but every time they did it, they would be like, "Welcome to Whose Line Is It Anyway?" Where the rules are made up and where everything is made up and the rules don't matter. Kind of like they would literally say that rules are made up. Anyways, that's just life. The life is Whose Line Is It Anyway?
It's funny because we're both watching One Piece. Great show. You should definitely watch it. But it's like anytime the rules just get changed and everything, it's like Luffy's like, that's not fair. That's not fair. That's not how this works and everything. And Luffy is a great person to work on yourself. I also do believe he is a manifestor in human design. But it's also important because, in life, when things don't go our way, we're like, that's not fair. It's not working out for me. Like, why isn't that happening? But there also is so many fucking things that it's not real. It's all just made up. Like when I understood lawyers kind of and the law in that sense of it's just how you can do it the best and whatever, I was like, well, that's fucked up. That's just a fake system then, right? And so then that goes into all of our lives of it's just all fake and made up.
Yeah, it's all made up.
It's just a game.
The fact that ChatGPT 4 can take contracts and find loopholes in the contracts for you to better your case. It's all made up. Mm-hmm. It's all made up. I love that you brought that lawyer example. That's so funny.
And so it's like in life when things aren't working out and it's like, why does it have to be this way? It's like, okay, what way can you think of in a different way where it does work out for you? Or why is everything against you right now? And is it really against you, or are you made to believe that it's against you?
Oh my gosh, wait. I was thinking this morning about this because, I was thinking a lot about how last week we talked about identities and the identities we form because of the stories that we tell ourselves. I'm the responsible one. I'm the hardworking one. And I was even thinking this morning that I was like, I don't want to be the girl that spends money on the things she likes and just doesn't have money. I want to be the girl that just gets money out of nowhere. That's the identity I want. So it's like, why can't you have that identity? If you're ever in a spot where you're thinking oh, I hate this, this is not fair, the first thing I ask myself is, whose story is this? And then I ask myself, what do I want my story to be? Because if I don't want to play by those rules, who told me those rules? Was it my family? Was it my great-grandparents who had to escape Russia and lost everything? A lot of shit is their story that passed down to my parents and me and yada yada. And it's like, okay, well, that's not my story anymore. And you talk about breaking generational curses, it's that. It's saying that's their story. I don't want it. So what are the rules for me? What's my story moving forward? What do I want to believe in?
And you know how we always say to ask the question why so many times? It's be that annoying kid that never shuts up and just always keeps asking why. Because it gets to a point where then you're trying to explain it to them and you're like, just shut up because it doesn't make sense. And you know that, but you don't know how to, you can't really say that to like a 6-year-old kid asking why a million times. But it's also that you get frustrated because now you're getting confronted with your own identity on how it's all made up.
Literally, that makes me think of whenever I was in like high school, because I didn't have a phone in middle school. My mom would get so mad when I wouldn't close the shower curtain, right? She would get so mad at me. She always wanted the shower curtain closed. And she was like, if you don't close the shower curtain, I'm going to take your phone away. And I was like, why? And she's like, because we need to keep the shower curtains closed. And I was like, why? And I kept asking her why. And she couldn't verbalize why. I'm sure in her head, she's like, if you close it, it's going to get moldy. You want to keep it open. Also, probably, though, it's like, it looks good. It looks good in that place. And then if she told me that, I'd be like, well, why do you want it to look good? And like all of those things. And you're right. Like at some point, you would have to question your identity and be like, do I want my home to look good because it makes me feel good? Or do I want my home to look good because I'm trying to prove something? And I'm sure it didn't go that deep for her. It was probably just she didn't want mold. But yeah, be that annoying kid.
Yeah. Be that annoying kid all the time. Like, stop trying to grow up. There's a reason why the 4 Petals meditation, the first one is freshness. And it's about kind of kids or plants or the sun and air changing and spring. Happy spring, everybody.
Happy spring.
It's like the second day of spring while we're recording this, but keep asking questions, because if you don't ask questions, then you're never going to learn.
Vibes.
And you're never going to change yourself. And then you're just going to be stuck. And then you're just going to be annoyed. And then you're just going to be bored.
And that's probably where a lot of you are sitting right now. Because that's where we were last year before we started asking why about everything. And I think what's cool about today's episode is we will be asking why a lot. Specifically, why they say you can't have it all. And this shows up a lot of ways, especially in life and business. I mean, I'm sure you think the first thing I thought of when we first brought up this topic is how they tell women that you can't have it all. You can't have the career and the dream husband and the family and the vacations and the friends. Like, it's almost like they're saying you have to pick a couple and that's all you get. Either you get the career or you get the family. You get the career or you get the husband. And it's not just like social media or movies that have told us this our whole lives. It's literally people in corporations who are secretly judging women who have families and need to take off early to go pick up their kids from daycare, and then they don't get a promotion. Like, these are very real stories that we've all heard throughout our lives, being told to us that we don't get to have it all and do all the things that we want. And we're going to tell you the 5 reasons why.
A really great show. I don't watch it anymore, but I watched like the first 2 or 3 seasons, was Working Moms on Netflix, and it's like moms in Canada.
I loved that.
One of the seasons, one of the mothers who's in marketing, is she had to literally choose her son or her job that she'd worked so hard for all of her life for anything. And she can't have both. She can't have family time and her job that she's worked her whole life for.
Yeah.
You have to choose. And then she chose her son over it because she was like, why am I choosing this career? And then went on this journey that I don't really remember. But we are literally sold inside of media, inside of our entire lives growing up. Like, you have to choose. You're either going to be liked by everyone or you're not, or you're going to get the job or have no friends. And there is no yes and there is no you get to have many things at once.
And it's like they're telling you that you have to have one identity. You cannot, because we just can't fathom that people could be more than one thing. You can't be a mom and a CEO. You can't be a good friend and a good wife. You can't be like all of these things. Like, you can't be both. And there's reasons why this is set up, and there's reasons why we believe that. And that's what we're going to break down today, the 5 reasons why we've been told we can't have it all. And then we're going to debunk them, because obviously we believe that you can have anything and everything that you want in this lifetime. And it's not going to look like the systems and the structures and the way of the past. It's going to look like your way. And we're going to give you motivation by the end of this episode to go create whatever effing life you want after we debunk all this bullshit.
And also know that, like, you get to choose what you want in your life, and you get to choose how it looks for. And so you can have it all, and it can look so different for everyone. And that's okay. That's what we want. We don't all want to look identical. We don't want to all be NPCs, non-playable characters. We want to have the ability to be different. And so be proud of that. Be okay with that. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing that really sets us up to believe we can't have it all is, dun 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 dun, the patriarchy, ladies and gentlemen. Introducing the patriarchy, the male-dominated system. First thing I want to say about the patriarchy, interesting enough, is when Victoria and I were first brainstorming about this topic, we were really also focusing on female friendships and making friends, because that is a very hot topic, because, you know, it's very hard to make friends as an adult. That was always one of my biggest questions. And this has been going on so long, people shutting down female friendships, and also this happens in career. We can get into that. But women used to gather in circles, and that's how they would teach each other, and that's how they would connect, and that's how they would bond, and all of those things, and brainstorm. And in the 1400s, especially in America, men started shutting that down. They said women can't be leaders, women can't be spiritual, women can't be healers, goodbye. And they really, really started like shaming women who met in circles. And that's like where you hear the rise of witches and like witchcraft, and they're witches, they're evil, yada, yada, yada. And that just continued from the 1400s to now, where in America do we have places for women to gather? And that's just like one way that the patriarchy shuts us down, and from one aspect of things that we want, which is friends. But I thought that was so wild when we were researching that we used to have places to gather, and then men were literally like, women are too powerful together. Let's like cut that out.
And it makes me think of I saw a TikTok a few weeks ago of going to learn how to make shay in, I forget the continent, the country inside of Africa that she went to. I think it was Ethiopia, but I could be really wrong. And she went and learned how to literally make shay. And it was from this tribe and everything that she went to and learned. She got like buckets and buckets. She took suitcases of it home. But it was literally a group of women in a circle teaching her how to make it and do all of the certain steps and making the stuff that she ended up taking home. And it's a group and tribe of women doing that.
Yeah.
There is a reason we like to congregate, and it's like men have so many places for them to do that. And it's literally inside of the system for them to do that, to have those friends, to build that things, to go to these clubs, to have time after work to go to these things and make those connections before they go home, because they don't have to take care of the family. They don't have to do all of that. They do all of this business stuff first, and then family comes second, which that's like not a good system. And like, that's not part of something necessarily I want. I don't want work to come first, but that's something that they're taught.
Yeah. And it's interesting because they took like these circles that women would meet in, and they made everything linear. I thought that was also interesting in the research that, we went from gathering, like you said in that example, where she went and she learned in a circle how to do this thing from a group of women. And now you said congregation, and it immediately made me think of churches. And churches, you meet in a linear fashion. You're not standing in a circle. Maybe you're standing in a circle to pray, but you're meeting in rows. And they designed this very intentionally so people would look at a leader would communicate a message, and everyone would consume it in a linear way. And that has become the way where it really only allows room for one person's opinion and one person's way of doing things. And that has just like really bled into our ability to expand what's possible.
Defining who gets to go on that stage and do that is also so made up. And we're literally told all of these different things. And like, I sent a TikTok to Ashely yesterday of somebody, and this is something we've talked about before, is I made 6 figures in the first 6 months of my business, and that's why you should trust me about what I'm about to say. And like, if you don't want to make money, like, stop listening to me and everything. And I was like, that's her validation. That's what she thinks makes her be able to talk and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you are able to talk. Like, girl, like, I don't care. I'm not here to shut you up. I'm just here to say, like, that money doesn't define you. And it's interesting because then like the next post I was seeing is about how like Pluto is entering Aquarius soon and everything. And the astrology world is seeing some big turns. And it's so interesting because it's leaving Capricorn. Capricorn's so obsessed with money and going after all this stuff, which we've been seeing for the past like 15 years. And it's funny because that's what that was. And I'm seeing it and it's like, that's not where I am, but that's also not where the page is turning. And so it's so interesting to watch it, knowing like people aren't going after this anymore, and some people are, and they always will be. It will be slow transitions, but we are still sold that money is what tells you you're at the top and that you're the one to be listened to, where that's kind of about to change. But it also goes into the sense of there's actually no rules of who gets to talk. There's no one who gets to speak. Anybody can.
Yeah,
you just have to do it.
Yeah, and when I think about her, it's sad to think, because I used to think this too. I used to think I had to say, oh, you should listen to me. I've made a lot of money. I've made a lot of money. I even caught myself accidentally doing that. Yesterday, I was filming a TikTok and I was like, as someone who's made multiple six figures, like, and I just say that because for me, I know it resonates with people that like, oh, like, it's not just me that thinks that's important. Other people are also like, oh, yeah, that means they're important. But instead of saying that, like, I'm worthy of being listened to, even if I haven't made multiple six figures, I'm worthy of being listened to if I made $2. And that's the shift that's coming. But you're right. Like, that's how we have positioned it to be like, oh, you're important of talking. And it's like, the other thing I was going to say is it's not just about like who gets to talk. It's also that we're fighting to talk, if that makes sense. Because let's be real, the patriarchy is designed for white cis men. And I know we're going to talk a lot about women because that's mine and Victoria's experience. But do not get me wrong. Like, this is not a women experience exclusively. This is anyone who is not a white cisgendered male. The patriarchy is hurting us actively. And so now instead of feeling worthy of talking, feeling worthy of being a leader, feeling worthy of friendship, we are constantly battling and fighting and trying to prove that we are worthy of talking at all levels of all people who are not those men who have just led the way and decided the world works for them.
Okay, well, 2 things on that, which is, one, something that I listened to this weekend was a Margaret Atwood interview, which I did not realize how much I loved that woman until this weekend. She said something so amazing,
side note,
which was...
Margaret Atwood is the author of The Handmaid's Tale, for anyone who doesn't know, to give you more like, oh, okay, that's that woman. Yeah.
It was a really great interview. If you want to go listen to it, it was offline with Jon Favreau interviewing Margaret Atwood. He asked her, he was like, what is advice for younger people that you would give today? And she was like, I actually don't like doing that. I learned from a tribe, I forget the tribe that she said, that it's actually not good because young people won't listen to you. Young people will not listen to me if I'm speaking unless they are coming to me for the advice.
Yeah.
And I was like, actually, maybe she's like a projector or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because her saying that is her being knowledgeable that age doesn't mean she's better and wiser and has all the answers. She might have some answers. She talked about an example of she heard these guys in the supermarket who were like, their dishwasher wasn't working. And she was like, oh, did you change the filter? And they were like, what's a filter? And it's like, sometimes, you just know a little bit more because you had dishwashers and like experience. But that doesn't mean you're always the wisest. And what this tribe or whatever taught her is basically a young person has to come to you for advice. You don't just give them advice because they will never listen to you. And just because you're older doesn't mean you're wiser. So you actually you should shut up because you are still learning.
Yeah.
And I was like, more people need to know that. But the next thing I'm going to say is we keep saying the patriarchy, but it's not even necessarily always the patriarchy. It's kind of just capitalism in that sense.
Yeah.
Of where that's kind of what's teaching us to do this. But then, I mean, they go hand in hand. And so interchange them for what you will.
Yeah, totally. No, that makes a lot of sense, especially because, we're fighting to be heard and we're thinking like all of these things.
And we're fighting to be at the top, right? And like there's only so much room at the top.
Right. And you can't have it all because not everyone can be at the top is what's told to us. And so it brings a lot of things that we're going to talk about later in the episode, like this idea that you have to be alone or that you can't make friends at the top because you're going to be lonely, like all of these things, because we had to fight to get there. We have to be better than someone to be at the top. We have to prove how much money we're making to be worthy of being at the top. We have to be the oldest to be at the top. And it's like, that is a lie. That's not true. That's why people say you can't have it all, because of all of these beliefs that we think we have to carry out or act like or have to be worthy of being heard. And these are all like wounds that we have to heal. If you don't feel worthy of being seen or heard, that's a core wound that you need to work through, because it doesn't matter how much money you're making. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. It doesn't matter what the story is you want to tell today. You are worthy of being heard simply because you are a human and you exist and you're valid for being here.
But when we say that, it goes right against the patriarchy and capitalism because, saying like, oh, to get to the 1%, well, if everybody can get to the 1%, then the 1% has no value.
It's like,
And
fuck
so
the value.
then doing that will ruin the value of who you are and value of everyone. But it's like, that's the point, is it doesn't matter. That's a made up rule just to make you feel lesser.
Yeah, to make you feel small and to make you think that you can't have it all, that you can't, it's like not even, it's also, part of this episode is like, we can't have it all, like reasons why, but it's also like everyone can have it all. Everyone can have it all, right? Like not just this select few who makes it to the top. Like there is a world that exists where everyone can have their needs met and be seen and be heard. It's just, we have these things that we're talking about today that prevent us from doing it. And so the truth isn't that we can't have it all. The truth is there's strong systems preventing us from believing and taking action on having it all.
And, you know, it's like, what does it mean to have it all, right? Like, that's kind of a general term. And so can everyone be a billionaire? No. That's
Should everyone be a billionaire?
Unethical.
No. Should anyone
Should anybody
be a billionaire?
be?
No.
No.
I saw a TikTok that was like, it's ethical to be a millionaire, you know, and they're like, it's ethical to be a millionaire. We can be millionaires. That's fine. It is not ethical to be a billionaire. And they were like, so many of these tech bros who are millionaires are like, oh, they're going to come for me, eat the rich. And they're like, when we say eat the rich, we're talking about billionaires. We're not talking about you with your little $1 million. We don't give a fuck about your $1 million. Okay. It's not ethical to be in the 1%, but you can have your little $1 million. Okay. It's fine. You know, eat the rich. We're not eating you. Relax.
I mean, I guess like it depends on the type of millionaire because, right, there is a part where you're almost at the billionaire and everything. So it's like maybe over 100 million.
Yeah, like what's the line of how many millions? I don't know. I feel
it's probably under 100 million, but let's say
I don't have research on this, but how many people are I feel like people are happy with Dolly Parton as a millionaire because she never crosses into billionaire.
She a billionaire?
No. She never crosses into billionaire territory because she invests and gives back to charities in her community and stuff. And I wonder,
she still pays her workers like not that much. I think she should pay people over minimum wage.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. See, I told you I don't know a lot of
Apparently,
research.
like the bottom employees literally just make base wages. Like some of them make like $7.25 or whatever. And it's like, okay, I think you should pay even your lowest wage at least above minimum wage because that's not a living wage.
Yeah.
Like she should pay them at least what the minimum wage should be, like 22 or something.
Yeah, if not more.
But like that's these are like finite nitpicky things, right? And so like in the large sense, she's better than others, right? And so
according to the internet, I have not done research
and
on
like
this.
we don't know her, right? I don't know her entire business model. I mean that's just from reporting and whatever. So like what am I here to say shit? But there's a point. So to have it all, what we kind of mean is that you can live the life that you want, right? Have the life that you want, have the family if you want or whatever, have the community, have the support you want. Be worthy of your life and be able to live your life and have enjoyment and fulfillment. We saw a great TikTok this morning. I sent it to Ashely and she watched it and it was like why the work-life balance is fake, which I said before. And it's because you literally will only have like, to the American standards, she broke it down and everything, and you only have basically a week of your year to have life and fulfillment, which isn't enough. And because we work too much, where the average human should work 3 to 4 hours a day. And we work way more than that. And so that's kind of what we more mean to have it all, is to have that fulfillment, to have that enjoyment, to be able to do those things, to not have to, you're still going to have to make some choices and some things that you don't like. That's just a part of life. There's obviously not everything is great, dandy, and butterflies all the time. And that's fine, but it also doesn't mean that there's extreme suffering that has to happen and we have to put ourselves through.
Yeah. And this whole idea of work-life balance is actually work survival balance, because based on the TikTok we saw, the only thing that we have time for is working and surviving, having our basic needs met, which is so ridiculous that the systems that we live in have made us believe that you meeting your basic needs is life, is living. The fact that you need sleep and you have to eat and you have to exercise, we literally need to be social, to be happy people and successful people. Cut socialization out, because they have made you believe that you have bad work-life balance if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not eating, yada, 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 right? And it's like, that's surviving. That's work surviving. There's no life. Because to me, life is everything that you said. It's fulfillment, it's socializing, it's living, it's purpose, it's activities that nurture you beyond just your basic fundamental needs of like sleep, eat, exercise.
And it's so funny because with one being having been an ADHD coach is literally almost with every single of my client, the first thing that we're working on is getting better at meeting their basic needs.
Yeah.
Because unless you're meeting your basic needs, which can be hard for ADHD, right? And so we have to learn ways to do that and make it easier so that you can go and then find that enjoyment in life. And so that's kind of like what most of my clients is like, we worked on like getting their basic needs met in a better way to then go get that next step. And so one, we have so much struggle with that. So many clients to me said like, I'm so tired of always having to do dishes, of always having to take care of myself and not ever getting that time, yet also feeling like none of that stuff is ever taken care of because they're told like they're doing it wrong and like that's just the problem. And that's one, never was the problem. They didn't have a better system to deal with it and better functions in ways, but they also never got that second part of like having life, having fulfillment. And so they were just stuck in a survival loop. And that's why it's learning how to actually have a life and find that spark again and enjoy life rather than just surviving. That's like what that stuff is talking about.
Yeah, I even think about my sister who this week was telling me, you know, she just moved into her first apartment by herself. And she was like, I'm so tired of just taking care of myself. She's like, I feel like the only thing I've been doing lately is working and then taking care of myself, cooking my meals, cleaning up my house, going to sleep, taking care of my cat. Like all she's doing is, like you said, surviving because that's all that we have time for, or that's all we've been told we have time for. And this is something that business owners have to think about too. If you want to live a life full of fulfillment, like we've been talking about all of these episodes, you have to learn how to take care of those basic needs, but also create space for living because it is exhausting if the only thing you're doing is working and taking care of yourself, working and taking care of yourself. And like you said, many of us are not even taking care of ourselves because it's too hard by the time that we finish exhausting our brain with all the decisions that we have to make. It's too hard after we take care of everybody else, our clients, our partners, our kids, our pets. And then it comes to us and we're like, nope, just going to go to sleep. And we need nurturing beyond sleep and food and exercise. There's so much more that we need to be happy, healthy, excited humans. And it's just like, we're not set up in a space where we can access that. So we're told, especially if you're a business owner, you have access to creating whatever life that you want. And if you do not have the life that you want as a business owner, I would argue it's because you have not taken the time to deconstruct the rules and decide what the rules will be for you.
Yeah, because we go from the system where we are working all of that time, most of the time. Maybe you enter entrepreneurship extremely early in your life, but you're still sold all of these things, this hustle culture. And unless you deconstruct all of that inside of you, then you are not going to have any of that figured out. And we do believe, and we have to deconstruct that if you want to be able to do that and enjoy life and enjoy business, because it's like as business owners, especially starting, is we are told like, oh, you're filling all of these roles. I am customer service. I am this. I am doing all of this. And it's like, you need to understand like that's a lot of stuff. But also, are you trying to fill too many roles? And it's like, I understand when you're first starting out, you might not have as much money or whatever, but then it comes to a certain point where you do, but then you're making up all of these tasks because now you're making up more and you have more to spend and you're not ever taking apart that first part where you actually don't have to do it all anymore and you were making up stuff then. And so then you're making up even more stuff now.
Yeah. And it's like, I love that because we do make up rules when we start a business. Do you really need to do DMs to make sales and land clients? No, but we make that a rule. Do you have to do perfect content to make sales and land clients? No, but we make that a rule. Like we literally make these things up, and I'll give you proof that most things are made up. I saw a post of someone who's like a very successful business owner. And yesterday she posted, for the first year of my business, I made 6 figures and I never learned marketing or sales. I just posted whatever I wanted and I was successful. Why does she get that, but other people don't? Because we make up rules. We literally make them up. And then like, yes, we didn't make them up. A lot of the systems that we're living in made them up, fed them to us. We believe them, But now it's time to circle back to what we said in the beginning of the episode and start asking why. Why do I think I have to work so hard? Why do I think I need to fulfill all these roles? Why do I think I have to do these things to be successful? Okay, the second thing that really is the reason why we can't have it all is mean girls. And this can be, like I said, we're talking from the women identifying experience of mean girls, but this can be mean anything. But women, and like we can get into the sisterhood, women are not, we said this in the beginning, supportive. Or not that women aren't supportive. Women are perceived to be not supportive. Women are pitted against each other. Women are competition. Like this is the narrative that is fed to us. It's not the truth, but it is the narrative. And so we have grown up our whole lives as women identifying people with social media and media and movies and narratives that there are mean girls and they're going to be mean to you and they're going to exclude you and they're going to judge you and they're going to fight you and yada, 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 because there's only space for one girl at the top. Why? Because the patriarchy doesn't make room for people who aren't white men. And so now anyone else who is not that is basically fighting each other to find a space up there because there's only one available.
There's so many great media examples of this in New Girl, Schmidt, in marketing, right? Like the girls are always fighting inside of his job to get the thing. He's even fighting. He's playing all the games. And he's like, this is so weird. Like, it's cutthroat, but like he's playing that game and thinking there is this only small rule to get to the top and everything, when that's not true. We were just told that to, one, keep us out, because I mean, we weren't even in there for that long. We only got the right to work not even that long ago. And we only got like our own credit cards and everything, like what, 30, 40 years ago, is it?
Yeah, something really embarrassing.
Or 50 years ago, something like that. And so the fact that it's like, yeah, no, it makes sense of why we were told that, and we're sold this so harshly that there isn't that much room for us at the top. There's room for all the guys. Don't worry about that. But like, there's not that much room for you. And when you get there, you're not going to be liked. Nobody's going to enjoy you, and everyone's going to hate you. So you're going to have to watch your back all the time.
Right. Something that Victoria and I talked about with this was the fact that how many times have you scrolled on TikTok and seen people say, I started a business and I lost all my friends? And how many of those people were women? Because it's always women on my feed talking about the minute they started a business, they lost all their friends. And why is that? It could be because their values changed. It could be because their business became their personality. It could be because that they became a perceived threat to somebody else and their friends didn't like that they were successful. It could be a lot of those things. It could even be that their friends didn't think that they were a threat and they were happy that they were successful, but that business person was projecting and they were like, oh, now they don't like me because I'm successful, and they just put that on those people even if they didn't think that, and now that's the world that they're living in the story they created for themselves. But you know, you've seen this over and over again when a friend loses a lot of weight, and I've seen these stories and this has happened to me, and now girls are mean to them because like, what does that mean? Why is their identity changing? What does that mean about me? A girl gets a promotion and they lose their friends. A girl starts a business and they lose their friends, all because we are continuing this narrative of like, we can't trust each other and we feel dis-ease around each other and we don't want each other to be successful because that means maybe I can't be successful, and that just makes no sense.
And it goes interesting because from a young age, I was taught jealousy is bad, right? But jealousy is not in a sense it's amazing, because one, things are not inherently good versus bad, but it's what we kind of deal with them. And so it's, if I am jealous of said Ashely's business, if she's just starting one, it shows that like, okay, why am I jealous? Because there's something inside of that I'm envying. I need to go look at that. But we're taught that like, it's so bad, don't look into it. Like, that's not good, run away from it.
Shame, hide. Yeah.
Exactly.
Toxic
we're supposed to,
positivity.
we can't talk about that. And it's not necessarily I should go to Ashely and be like, hey, I'm jealous of you. What the fuck? But it's like, hey, like, can you tell me more about this? And investigate, but also investigate within yourself, but also have friends, maybe that's not Ashely, to investigate. It's like, I'm really happy for her, but I'm like also really jealous. And it's like, I guess I kind of want that, or like I'm unhappy with what I'm at. And maybe I want to get that in my own different way. But we are taught and told that those are not good things to do. And you need to just be in your dark corner and do this by yourself. And that individualism, the hyper-individualism, is really terrible for us in a sense, as it breaks communities and it just heightens the mean girl tribe.
Well,
or person.
a good example of breaking out of that mean girl perspective and like approaching jealousy and envy in a really healthy way is, remember when like we first started the podcast, and this probably happened live on an episode, and or maybe it was after, and I told you, I'm like, I am so envious that you can just do whatever you want on TikTok. Like you you say whatever you want and post whatever you want. And I don't really understand how you're able to do that. And I'm trying to work on doing that because I want to be like that. And then in the flip side, you're like, well, I'm envious that you speak so well because you seem like you always know exactly what to say and everything so put together. And it's really funny because one, that was really healthy that we could both be like, hey, I think you do a really cool thing. Can you tell me about it? And I think we've done a great job over the past 7 months giving each other's, not even, sometimes it's direct tips on how to be more like that trait we enjoy, but also like indirectly, like just being around each other, being like, oh, Ashely does that when she speaks. Or I'm like, oh, Victoria did this thing and she didn't even think about it. I'm going to try that, and doing that in a really healthy way of using that envy to allow us to better ourselves. But also we didn't like tear each other down or make it mean anything about us. It was just a healthy dynamic that allowed us to grow and we could talk about it because we weren't like gonna tear each other down.
A really great example of this is a few weeks ago, I wrote something and I was like, does this make sense? Is this a good story? I'm trying to get better at writing and I'm trying to get better at storytelling. And Ashley's really good at it. And she was like, no, there is no emotion in here. Let's work on this. And she helped me work on that. When I've handed writing to other people before, by a teacher, I was told I was a D+ writer and I would never do well and that I wouldn't be successful without her help. I have literally given a paper to a friend who was an English major who's written books and everything. She was like, this is a rough draft that's too rough for me to read. Go try it again. I have people literally laughed at what I wrote and everything. And so it's like going to that, I was taking another chance on myself, scared that like, I don't think that Ashely would do that. I'd gotten to a point where I did trust her enough, but I literally wasn't even thinking that she would do that. And she went right into help me instead of being mean. And it's not necessarily that everyone was mean. The teacher was fucking mean. And that bitch,
they were fun.
I will
think
send her a book one day. I know where she is. I fucking hate that lady. But we can help each other. And, there's some strengths that we just inherently have and that you might not necessarily get. I might just be better at that for my life and whatever. And that's basically projector. Like you're better at telling stories. You're better at that stuff than me. That's okay. I'm maybe never going to get perfect. I don't have to do it like Ashely, but Ashely can help teach me tactics to get better. And like she has. And because we were able to have that conversation, we have been able to grow together, but also grow in fighting against the sisterhood wounds of, instead of individually and having to go to somebody else for it or just pushing myself into a darker place and be like, no, and not dealing with the shadow that was wanting to come out and wanting to get help. We were able to do that together.
Yeah, and I think, first of all, I think everyone that you had an experience with was mean. So let's just say that those people were fucking mean, every single one, including the friends.
Yeah, they were.
But that just goes to show that throughout our lives, we have experiences where all these people are so mean to us when we open up or we're vulnerable or we try to be honest and take our masks off and be our real selves. And so you just build up this evidence in your life that everyone's going to be mean. Mean girls are going to exist. I can't trust anyone. Why do you think so many people on TikTok are lonely and want friends? It's not because there aren't friends bounty or other people that are lonely. It's because they don't have people that they can trust because they have all of this evidence that there is no one to trust. And so if you actually want to make friends, you have to keep taking chances. Victoria took a chance by asking me a question that people were usually mean to her about. She took a chance on herself and she had a secure friendship where she could trust someone, and that is a shift. That's different. It's giving her new evidence, but it had to come from a place where she felt safe and she felt secure and she was going to feel heard. And I love that you said grow together, because I always hear people online saying, grow together, join my mastermind, join my community. We're a group of people who are going to grow together. And nobody talks about what that means. I've been in so many masterminds. Nobody is growing together. Nobody is helping each other. Everybody has a mask up. We're telling each other like a quarter of our problems so we don't feel embarrassed, but we get like just enough help to get by. And we don't do that. Like we grow together because we have our masks off and there's no mean girl mentality. We are dismantling that. And everyone wants to know, how do I find friends and how do I find friends that aren't mean? Every single person who's coming into the friendship has to have the same intention of we're going to be vulnerable and we're going to be honest. And that's how you heal sisterhood wounds or these mean girl mentalities that we've been like kind of fed, is by exposing ourselves without judgment around people who also are doing the same thing.
And to what you said is, I think not all vulnerable moments might look vulnerable at the face of them. So it's like me asking Ashely for help on writing. That doesn't necessarily inherently mean like or look like a vulnerable moment.
Yeah.
Because she might not know. She didn't know going into that, like how many times people have laughed at me when asking about writing. Like she doesn't know all of that stuff. But she went in and was like, okay, no, this actually isn't this. But here, let's work on this together. Like, here's some strategies. Like, let's do this. And knowing that the vulnerable moments that might appear in your life, and I know that like we all have these, of a time when we're asking for help where we don't feel like it is vulnerable, but it actually is, and it runs deeper, is that's why we need to always just be open and not necessarily like going off on people that fast. Because it's like in a mastermind, we can like ask for help on that storytelling and be like, oh, just like do this, like just go. That's not like a real problem, right? And we dismiss each other's problems so easily when we don't know necessarily the real issues and the real deep things that are going off of those. Ashely didn't know all of that, but she's like, oh, I'm here to help. Let's try and work on this. Like there's some of this stuff. And now I have tools to go forward, where if she had just started right off me like, no, that's stupid. That's not a real issue. This is just stupid. Like go home, write it again. Then I wouldn't have been able to have that space and I wouldn't be able to grow.
Yeah.
And so vulnerable moments don't just look like, hey, I'm having a hard time.
Yeah.
That is a vulnerable moment, but that's what we're taught kind of as the only vulnerable moments.
Yeah, I would argue that most vulnerable moments are only going to feel vulnerable to you and not to the other people. Obviously, yes, there are other times where it's going to be like extremely vulnerable and the other person's going to know that you're telling something that's a big deal. But yeah, a lot of times people are not going to be aware of what is sensitive to you because we haven't lived your life. You know, we talk about all these core wounds that we have, or people being mean. Even like if you listen back to some of our friendship episodes, I've said many times I did not want to be Victoria's friend because she was going to move away. And I was like, why the fuck would I be friends with someone who's not going to be here? I've done that before. Someone who's moved around like through elementary school and middle school. I had many different schools when I grew up. I went to college. I moved away from college. I've always like drastically cut off friendships when I moved. So like that's vulnerable for me to even take a chance on a friend. But she might not know that. She might not. I mean, literally, she didn't. You wouldn't know that whole history about me. But I remember making the bed one night and be like, I'm so fucking pissed. Me and Victoria have been going all these walks and I want to be your friend. But what's the point of being your friend if she's going to move to another state? This is so dumb, right? Like, and so even just the act of being her friend was extremely vulnerable for me. I even told her yesterday when we were talking about how we've grown a secure friendship, probably like the very first one in our lives. It was like I felt like I was like dipping my toe in the water. I was never fully committed for a while because I'm like, I don't know how much do I want to tell this person who's gonna move away, kind of thing.
When do you feel like you finally committed?
I think I finally committed whenever we started talking about all our problems in business. And we were like, I was like, okay, I can be my real self now. Because I feel like I was being my real self. And obviously we talked about deep stuff. But like, I think like the deep stuff that we talked about.
It was so surface level.
It didn't feel vulnerable to me. Like, you know, and we had been hiking all summer together, going on walks all summer together, like 3 months. And it really wasn't until August when we were cycling and we were both like, how are we going to make more money? And I was like, I've never admitted to a single human that I have no idea how I'm going to continue to scale this business. I had been, other than like maybe coaches or whatever, that I was like at a glass ceiling. And like, I feel like you were the very first person besides maybe Adrian that I was like, I don't know what the fuck to do next. I feel really stuck. And that's vulnerable for me. And you might not know that that was vulnerable, but I feel like that was the time where I was like, all right, well, I just told her the truth about how I feel. So we're committed to this.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like, I was the one that kind of started that vulnerability of like, I'm so fucking frustrated. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I want to work less. This isn't going to work out for me. I don't know. And that opened up to her being able to have that vulnerable moment.
Like, me too.
All summer. And even then the months before that is we had masks on, which goes to our third one. And we put and are told to portray all of these masks that like, oh, we are being vulnerable and everything. Like we were sharing small issues inside of our business.
Yeah, like, oh, this client did that. This post didn't do that. I'm annoyed about this.
Or like, oh, I need to fix this in my contract. Oh, I have this. I can help you out. Like I'll send you my contract. You can write that clause or whatever because of that issue. And those were very surface level problems because we weren't ready to admit to each other out loud the deeper issues.
So true. Yeah. And me and Victoria talked about this where, you know, you have your professional self, and that's kind of the person that you present online and the people that you don't know. And then you have like this trustworthy mask where it's like, I'm kind of being honest about problems. I'm not presenting myself as perfect, but these are the real problems. And that was us all summer where we're like, oh, this bad thing happened. It's like, oh, bad things happen to me too. But it's like way deeper than just that one little bad thing. And I will argue that most masterminds are that mask where most people who are getting support in their businesses or maybe even in like coaching, like life coaching communities, it's that trustworthy mask where you can tell just enough about the bad things, but not actually get to the root of the bad thing, which is really dumb because the root of the bad thing is how you make change. And then beyond that trustworthy mask, you have your shadow, which is the reason why you feel shame around the thing, and then your true self. So like I wanted to all along just be like, I hate my business. I can't keep working like this. I'm mad about these clients and this offer and this post because I don't fucking like any of these things anymore. I don't like how I'm running things. But I felt shame and shadow around the fact that I wasn't perfect and I didn't have it all together. And when Victoria met me, she thought I had it all together. So I just wanted to keep being that person because if I don't have it all together, who the fuck am I? And that was my true self, who I didn't know. I didn't know my true self. So who am I if I don't have it all together? That's fucking scary. And so we have all these masks up and we can't have friends and we can't have the real business that we want because we don't even know who the fuck we are behind the mask.
Right? Like I was thinking for so long of like, oh, Ashely's just like, she's doing it so much better. She has it all together. Like she's dealing with Max, the puppy. She's showing up online. She's doing all of these things. She's saying how much money she's making. And I'm just like, I'm just struggling to like get up and like shower today. Like, yeah. I'm struggling to do that. And like even hiking in the summer is like I was sharing like some problems and it felt to me like Ashely wasn't sharing as many. And it's because I think you didn't have as many surface level problems in your business at that point because they were all deeper and you were like so fucking done with it, but you weren't fully there to invest and admit that and understand what would come next. And I was like, damn, like she's just like, fine, like what? It's just me, like fuck. Yeah. And I felt alone in that.
Yeah, because I was like, if I tell her,
and it was like, am I complaining too much? Am I being negative? Like, does she not like that? Like, is she gonna be annoyed by that? These are literal thoughts that I had.
Right,
but it's because we had masks up and we weren't ever talking about the real shit.
Yeah, we were talking.
Versus a few months later, we're both doing TBM, we're both doing deep ass fucking trauma work, and we're like, oh my god, I just got this deep one. You want to talk about it? This just unlocked a new memory, and you're like, hit me with it. What is it? Oh yeah, I want to hear all about your trauma.
Yeah, tell me all about it. And no, you're right. Like I was totally not telling you any problems because I didn't have surface level problems, or it was like, oh, this client made me mad, yada yada. It was like, if I unlock this thing that I have not told any of my friends, just maybe not even Adrian yet. If I unlock this, I can't lock it back. It's like a one and done kind of lock situation. And so like I felt like I had to have a mask up until I felt safe enough to unlock that. And the sad thing is, because of the mean girls and because of the mask, like we do not have safe spaces, genuine safe spaces where we can be vulnerable. And the hard thing is, it starts with one person being vulnerable first. And like you said, you were vulnerable first. So I was like, unlock the door, release the demons. And I could do that because you gave me permission to do that. And we don't have places where we can do that. And it's sad.
We don't. And, you know, it's not necessarily right to do that in an open space or like online. I'm saying is like, we don't have to go and be like, so I actually you don't have to go like find your deepest and darkest shameful repressed trauma and then go tell the internet the next thing. Like it's friend. Okay. You can process that and everything. Go process it and then you can share it. But you should have people that you can process it with, whether that be like, obviously I process a lot of it with a therapist, but then I'm like, oh my God, I processed this in therapy. Like, Ashely, let me tell you all about this. I had no idea. Because like, one, it could be helpful. I love the thing of like people saying trickle down therapy, using that economics. I'm like, I pay for therapy because I have a job, but my friends don't have a job, so that they get my trickle down therapy.
I'm dead.
But it's like, right, so I've learned some things and everything that we come back and we share, and like we grow together based off of that stuff. And, you know, something that I might have learned in words that I don't even realize I'm saying then might have triggered something in Ashely's brain. She might go deal with it and then come back 2 weeks later and be like, so something you said about that, and then I did this and this and this and this. And we need to have a place where we can have those conversations, yet we don't. And we don't allow ourselves to open and take off that mask. And it keeps us stuck. And the post that kind of thought us thinking of this and thinking about sisterhood wounds is we saw somewhere where I saw a post that somebody was talking about why men are so rich is because they have boys clubs, and they just get on the phone. She's talking about like her boyfriend or fiance or something, and with another guy in the group, and he's just straight to the point talking about profit and losses and just getting into the deep stuff. There's no shame around it. But the comments of that video were like, I have tried this with females, but like they're not into it, or they get what they want and then they run with it and go do other things. And that's kind of like that mean girl approach that comes in. But it's also taught that like we're not able to stay and work together and grow together and do that because we don't ever take off that next level mask to get to that shadow. And that we don't have places where we can be that vulnerable and have that help. Because the thing, well, I mean, that's kind of like the patriarchy where like men can't have feelings and everything. And so like that's another topic for another day and world and everything, where like we all collectively need to have these places where we can take off that mask and do that. But there's like a half layer in between of that where women need to be able to have places to do that. And especially business owners and everything, because when we were able to do that, we were able to fix the real problems that kept holding us back. And until that happened, I have no idea how long it would have taken or if I would have ever done it, because I was terrified to do that. And it's terrifying to do that by yourself.
Yeah. And it's not just that we need
And you don't have to do it by yourself, because we don't need to be hyper individualized.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say is like, we don't just need places where we can take off our mask and get to the root of our issue. Because I can do that by myself. I do that by myself all the time with TVM. Like you said, I go in, I do meditations, I go into my childhood, I reprogram shit. I do that by myself all the time. I don't just need to go tell that to Victoria. We need communities. We need groups of people to share insights with, to get to the root of our problems with, to relate to, not just for the fact that they can help us and add new perspective, but because we need to not feel like we are the only people going through the shit we're going through. And that's what happens right now, because I even think about these masterminds that exist and these communities that exist that are supposed to support you through your problems. If the people running it do not set the intention that we're removing masks and tell you how to do that and show you how to do that, then what the fuck is it for? Because we're all going in with fake problems. And every mastermind I've been in, it's like people are telling you fake problems and they're doing what that girl said in that post where they're like, oh, that's how they solve their problem. I'm taking it and I'm running it and I'm using it to better me, and I'm not going to do anything to better them because I don't actually know them. I don't actually give a fuck about them. I don't actually know their deep problems. And I think that's what's cool about like the Living Adventures Collective is we have been through this experience. We know how to remove the mask. We know that you have to lead with vulnerability. We can show what that looks like. And so not only are people who join the collective like getting this deep experience to connect and care with people deeply and not feel alone, but they're doing it for 6 months and then they're coming together in person at the end. Like, that's crazy. Like, these things don't exist for people in life right now. And it's so necessary, like you said, because we're never going to get to the root of the problem. We're never going to change unless we feel supported, truly supported, like people give a shit about us, and no one's creating spaces for people to give a shit about us.
And we have been put against this in history time and time again from creating these spaces. Like in the 1400s, women weren't allowed to meet in circles anymore because it was too powerful and everything. Because these things do work and they are healing and they are helpful, but they've been banned for so long and we're so hyper individualized that like we feel so uncomfortable doing this these days. We feel uncomfortable sharing and talking about that because we were told for so long, like, no, just suck it up, like cry at home alone, and then like go put on that mask again and show that like you can show that you have some problems, like, oh, like my dog died too. Like I've been through some things too. Like those are just like little nuggets you're pushing along to make you feel, it's like you're on the helper high of like level 4 of the entrepreneur evolution, where you're getting your ego validated by showing up and showing these like,
a little bit of
oh,
problems.
I have problems too. Like I'm suffering too. Like, don't worry, I like kind of get it and everything, but you're never addressing like the real issues in the deeper wound that's happening, because we're just told that that happens alone and then that's it. Like you just heal that alone and then you're good. Like don't talk about it.
Yeah, it makes me think of like the 1960s Stepford housewives, where you had to be the perfect housewife. You couldn't have any problems. Don't let your makeup smudge. Have your hair done perfect. Don't tell anybody about what's going on at home, how you're feeling. You're always happy. You're always perfect. And like that was literally a time in society that existed where, you know, if someone had a pimple, they're like, you're really going to go out like that? That's embarrassing. That's disgusting, right? Like women were tearing each other down in this way because we had to be perfect, which means we can't relate to each other. And so now we've tried to shift out of that by showing these little tiny problems. But you're right, and they're not the real problems. They don't foster true connection. And as much as the online space is cool for connecting you to people like you, those are not real connections. The people you meet online, unless you're meeting offline off of social media, they're not your real friends. They do not care about the tiny problems that you're showing. They can validate your ego and the fact that you're not alone in your problems for so long. You know, I think of the girl who like is lonely and every Friday night she shows how lonely she is. Yes, good job. She's getting her ego validated because people in the comments are like, oh my God, I'm lonely too. Now fucking what, guys? Good job. You're all lonely. What the fuck are you going to do about it, you know? And it's like, I get that they don't actually have anything to do about it because these spaces to congregate and talk about the real issue of why we're so fucking lonely doesn't exist. But it's time for that space to be created, which is, I think, is what we're trying to do. But like, there needs to be more.
There needs to be more, and there needs to be like, and there will be. I do feel in the next coming years, it will be growing in those spaces. I do believe communities are going to become a lot bigger and come offline as well, as people do want that and miss that. But it's also in the sense of, so, you know, I sometimes have a lot of issues with the word like relatable, right? And so it's like, what's the actress in White Lotus and at the Emmys or Oscars or whatever fucking
Aubrey,
awards
whatever
ceremony that was going, and they were like, oh, like what are you, or what after party are you going to? And she's like, honestly, I'm gonna go home. Like I'm tired. It's midnight.
Oh, okay,
like,
no, Aubrey, the other one. Yeah.
I want to go take a bath, right? And like everyone's like, oh my God, so relatable. Like, yeah, right? Like we're not all necessarily relatable. Like you're not at the Oscars saying that, but it's like, yeah, you know, like I don't want to stay out late. Like I am tired. I want to go home, and like I should be able to do that. I don't have to party, and like that's okay. But you know, some people would be like, that's not relatable. I want to go party. Like I love that. But we think relatability needs to be like one for one and like having that same experience, where in the vulnerable space of being relatable is like, Ashely and I don't have to even have the same core wounds to be relatable, but it's dealing with the same issues. Sometimes they come up in like similar ways of like, oh, maybe we're both having issues with our mothers, and like our core wounds around it might be different, but we can get together and work on it together because we both know how deep it can impact our lives.
Yeah.
And so it's relatability on just hardship and struggles and life and wanting to live a better life and enjoyable on both fronts. And so you are here to listen to whatever it is and understand like what is helpful for them. Like when I was depressed around my birthday, Ashely goes like, hey, it's going to be sunny the next day after you get home. Do you want to go hiking, or will you not have energy for that? Right? Knowing that like, oh, I might not have energy after a long car ride because I really struggle in those, but also it is sunny and I know you like hiking and we can go do that. And that might be helpful for your mental health. And it was, but having options actually presented to me that I want and like, and somebody understands that. She understands things that are needed in my life that also I might not have energy for that. And though it's in her best trying to do that. Whereas when I was growing up, if something hard happened, my mom pushed food down my throat because my mom has an eating disorder. She binge eats. And so she's trying to push her own issues upon mine instead of being able to be vulnerable and hold space for the moment that's happening inside of my life.
Yeah. And like it's sad that people don't have spaces where people truly learn about them in a way to know how to help them, to know how to hear them, to know how to hold space for them. And that is going to continue to be a reason why people stay stuck if they can't get to a place where they don't feel alone and they don't have people that solve their problems in a way that matches solutions that work for them. Even think about like business masterminds. You know, they're like, oh, you're not making sales? Okay, well, do this strategy and that strategy and that strategy. And they're pushing the cupcake down them because that's the cupcake that they would eat whenever they weren't making sales. But that's not the cupcake that they need. Maybe they need a hike, and that hike looks like a different way of selling or not selling that thing or whatever. And so like in every situation, we're just given solutions that don't work for us because people don't actually care about us and they can't relate to us because they're not taking off their mask either. Your mom didn't take her mask off when she was asking you if you wanted a cake when you were sad, you know? And so if you can't find people to lead you or guide you that have their masks off and true masks off, if you can't find groups of people who are removing their masks, you're never going to get solutions that actually shift your identity in your life.
Yeah.
Which leads
it goes
us
deep.
So the next point is that, or the next thing that keeps us from having it all is that it's lonely at the top, or that's what people tell us. And the reason it's told to us that it's lonely at the top is for all of the things that we've mentioned. There's not a lot of room at the top for everybody, so there can't be a lot of people at the top. You can't be related to at the top. People are going to be mean to you if you make it at the top, which is just a bunch of bullshit to keep you from having friends and success and love and family and all those things that you want.
Right. And it's a continuation of the Mean Girls of thinking like, oh, you're not going to have that many friends at the top. Oh, there's not that much room at the top. But also that like when you get to the top, like your other friends aren't going to be able to relate to you and you're not going to be able to like have those conversations and have those communication with them. So then you're just going to lose all of your friends because they're not going to have things in common with you anymore because you're going to always be working. And if you're at the top, said top, then you're always going to be working and doing all these things, just kind of like the male version of like, oh, he works all day and then comes home and just like does nothing, which it's not true, right? That's made up and you're made to believe that and you're made to force yourself to like make up these problems and work and do more things to fill that time, because like if you're not, then like why do you have this extra time and everything? And it goes back to what we were kind of talking in the beginning where like we are just told that to feel lonely and also to not go there, not even try, because then it's like, well, I don't want to be lonely, right? Or would I rather have money and be lonely, when that's not really like the two things you actually have to choose from.
Yeah, and it's a valid experience because I mean, I have made like whenever I've been I don't know, like I've experienced that. When I'm successful, I feel like I have less people I can talk to, less people to relate to. I even think about my experience with you over the summer that we talked about. I was super successful, so I was like, I'm not going to tell her about my problems. If I'm perceived as like successful, like I don't want to hurt my reputation or whatever, or how I'm being perceived. So even if you do have friends that you hang out with, you could be really successful and have friends that you hang out with, and you don't want them to know that you're not successful. You don't want them to question you or judge you or whatever because of the sisterhood wounds and because we're afraid people are going to be mean girls and judge us. But I even know the most wealthy people who have desperately told me that they wish they had friendship, but they don't know where to find it because they also feel like everything becomes a transaction and they have to set that boundary of like, well, I can't give this person advice. I'm going to have to charge for that because I usually charge for that kind of thing. Or I can't have a friend because they're my client now. Or we make all these rules for why we can't have friendship and we isolate ourselves. We do it to ourselves. And it's like, one, if you remove the mask, your real friends might actually support you and be okay that you can be successful and also sad. They might support you. But two, why not find people who are like you, who are also successful? They exist. You're not the only person who made it to the top. You're not the only person who's wealthy. You're not the only person with millions of followers. Like, these other people exist. The problem is it's very hard to find people who have made it to that level and are also willing to remove their mask with you so you can be vulnerable and support each other.
Right, because I think we think that we had this conversation earlier on, which when I got into Ashely's program, we had a conversation and I was like, hey, like, I don't want to like abuse you for advice. We were literally driving to Target and like going together because we were kind of friends then. And I was like, I don't want to like ask you too many things because we were talking about it. And Ashely was asking me questions about my business. And I was like, I don't want to like abuse this or anything. And we had a conversation about like, yeah, like we'll keep it open. We don't know what the boundaries necessarily going to be, right? Because it's a very weird situation to guide from. And it's so weird that we often just shy away from it because it is muddy waters. You can ruin relationships like that. And that happens. We're told that. And so, we're told like, oh, well, if you do it alone, then that won't hold you back or anything, right? I think of Barbara, the girl on woman on Shark Tank. I forget her whole name right now.
Cochran,
but
yeah.
She was like, my boyfriend broke up with me and told me that I wouldn't make it without him in the business. They had a business together. But then I took all of the money, ran with it, and then built it even bigger than he could have imagined, right? And so we're told all of these like individualistic success stories that we can't do it together with people. Or, when you try and do it with other people, it ruins and everything. And not necessarily have to do it with other people, like together in the same business. But like, even if you do that, like, no, you have to do it alone. Like, you cannot do it with other people by your side.
Also, yeah, and people are lying that they didn't get support or help. But the better story is I did this and I built this and I'm self-made and I did it myself. The good story isn't, oh, I did this and I talked to this person along the way and they gave me this really good advice and that changed a lot of things. And then this person came along and that was really helpful. Like, no, that's a boring ass story. So we don't hear that story. But if I think about really successful men, you don't think they're fucking giving each other advice? You don't think that when they're golfing...
They're getting the fucking performance coaches. They're paying millions for them, whether they're good or not.
Yeah. And even when they're hanging out for free, they're fucking going golfing. You don't think they're talking about their business problems and telling each other their problems and fixing it? No, they're fucking fixing each other's problems. And so it's a lie that it's lonely at the top. It's just you are lonely right now in the success that you've built because you don't have a network of people who are willing to be honest and vulnerable with you. That's the real fucking problem. And I know that because that was my fucking problem. It was my own fault because I wasn't being vulnerable with people. I wasn't looking for communities where people were like being honest. So of course I was living in the narrative that I had to do it alone.
Well, that also goes into like the second thing of kind of the patriarchy, but like also men aren't taught to have feelings, right? Is like those emotions are bad. Women are more emotional. That's why they can't succeed in business and everything. Where one, that's not necessarily true. Like men need to deal with their emotions and they don't statistically. And yes, people are breaking that and everything. And that is great. But is inside of those like boys clubs things is they're not talking about their emotions. They're just talking about business 24/7. And so even that is not even giving them a whole place to be seen as that. And so it's like, okay, they're giving each other business and everything, but they still might be lonely, like not physically. They might have numbers and people to help them, but like around their emotions and their struggles and things like that, like they are still going to be lonely. They're told like, oh, just hustle and grind through it, just get through it, just like us, but in a slightly different way. And they might have help along the way that like pushes them up higher and gives them information. Their emotional well-being will suffer.
True.
And be lonely.
Yeah, which I guess should lead us into solutions because obviously we want to have it all, right? I want to have amazing friends and a healthy relationship with my emotions and whatever kind of family I want to have and the house and the car and the yada, yada, yada. Like I want to have everything that I've ever wanted. So how are we supposed to do that when like these are all the things that we're up against? And I think we've mentioned a lot of great things, which is, first, yeah, you have to remove your own mask, but you have to find a place where you feel safe doing that and people you feel safe doing that with. That doesn't just happen online. That shouldn't happen online. You should find people that you feel comfortable doing that around and not just people like communities that can support you and care about you, not just as a business, not just for your emotions, but for you like as a whole individual who's experiencing the world in many different facets and ways.
Right, because, we see the advice online in hustle culture of, oh, you don't want to be the poorest one in the room. You should always, always you don't want to be the richest one in the room. You want to be the poorer one so you're around the rich people. But it's like, okay, but you also want to be around places to have that emotion. And so finding those places and starting to create those spaces is really important. And even if you're not ready for that, is learning to get more comfortable with having emotions and being vulnerable in any relationship in your life, because it's not just even inside of business or whatever, because we want to be able to have these better relationships throughout our life, right? And so even with family and friends and home life, and to be able to work on that vulnerability so that, one, it might come to you more naturally when you get into that space, but we want to be able to just work on that throughout our life. Because we all deserve that. We all deserve that safe feeling that comes with it and the secure relationships that we so desperately crave, yet the world prevents against and promotes against it.
Yeah, the world wants us to be individuals, but we do deserve to be in relationships that where people care about us. And it really comes back to this idea that we have to get back to our whole authentic versions of ourselves, even the shadowy parts, even the parts that we're shameful for. And until we can find a way to do that, it's going to be hard for us to feel completely fulfilled and find a true path to success that works for us until we have people who can back us up and make us not feel so alone.
Yeah. And so until we can do that, we will be stuck in the capitalistic hellscape. Because
helpful. Great.
vulnerability helps us have those conversations so that we can see each other for more than just some random surface level masked identities that we create to have our ego met.
Yeah, no, it's true. And like the root issue really comes back to how individualized and alone we all are, because we're putting up that mask to not look dumb or be embarrassed or be judged. But at the same time, we're desperately craving connection. And what people don't realize, because I didn't realize this, I was thinking about how we have our Living Adventures Collective, and we have so many things that are going to transform people's lives inside of the collective, and not just make them better business owners, but better people, better friends, better everything. I didn't even know I needed half the things that we're giving to people in the Living Adventures Collective. I had no idea that if I had a friend that I could 100 be myself around, how much my life would change. That if I had some place where I could be honest about the things that I was struggling with, and not like in the mask way, like, oh, this client made me mad, but like deep, deep stuff. Like, I do not live the life I want to live. I want to run away from my life. I want to run away from my business. I hate how I'm doing everything. I had no idea how much a friend could shift me out of that, even if you never provided a solution and all I got to do is voice that and have someone say, hey, you're not alone. I've been there and I am there. I didn't know that. And so that's something I think about a lot is, unfortunately, there are so many things around this that we don't even know that we need, but it does all start. If you can just start with being vulnerable, it'll change your life. If you can find people where you can be honest about how you're really feeling, it'll change your life. Because that was step one for us. And then the rest of like the whole process unraveled as we went. And it's just like, I didn't know that I needed that.
Yeah. And it's like, I didn't know how much of a release that could bring, but also how much confidence that could bring. And how freeing it is. Like, it genuinely feels like a weight is lifted off your shoulders in this way that I it's hard to explain. It's different than that, because it feels like I could actually finally talk about things that I thought I had to just keep inside of me for so long, because that's what I was told. And I actually being able to have those conversations was life-changing.
Yeah, and you're so right.
Like, as simple as it seems.
Yeah, it is life-changing. I am a different person than 6 months ago. It's literally 7 months ago. It's insane. And I love that you say it made you confident, because it made me so confident. And it was because, like we've said in other episodes, like, I could borrow your confidence on days I didn't have it. You could borrow my confidence on days that you didn't have it. And that makes us feel less alone. There's so many reasons why we feel lonely, and the thing to combat it is, yes, partly knowing that there's other people going through the same things that you're going through, but it's also knowing that there's someone there for you to be strong when you don't know if you can be strong. And so if we think about like the Living Adventures Collective, 9 people together, to one person is going to be strong at all times in a group of 9 people. And I mean, obviously, yes, we're going to be strong because we've been through the process, but like, imagine the benefit of having 9 people who all have been through the experience you're going through, who are all being vulnerable, who have confidence on days when you don't have confidence, because they believe in you, because they see you, because they see your potential on days that you can't see it. That's the shit that changes lives, we know, because it changed our life. But that shit doesn't exist right now, because we're told we can't have it all, and we can't be vulnerable, and we can't show these sides of ourselves. And that's what's missing for most people to really shift into who they want to be and have all the things they want to have.
And it's not just borrowing confidence either. It's that when you are able to bring out your shadow and bring light to that, is you're not hiding as much, and you're not having all of those thoughts of like, no, I can't do that because then that will happen and this will happen and everything. You're able to like ask these questions and have those conversations and figure out what you can do and what makes you feel safe. And when you give light to your shadow, you are healing a part of yourself that does gain a new sense of confidence like nothing else.
That's so true.
Because that shadow is what holds us back.
Yeah, it is. I even think about like, let's say you're going to get a new opportunity that you've never gotten before. And deep down, you're thinking, I'm going to mess this up because I always mess everything up. That's a shadow. You're not going to go tell people that you're a fuck up and you mess things up. Why would we ever tell anyone that? But the minute you tell a group of people that you feel safe with, hey, I have this cool opportunity and I'm worried I'm going to mess it up because I've been known to mess it up, you get to process that. You get to bring light to that. You get to own that part of yourself and be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm not perfect. Oh, Victoria's messed things up before. Okay, cool. And it worked out. Okay, I'm getting proof that I can mess up and I'm allowed to be a mess up, and other people have messed up before. And not only do you bring light to it, but you bring confidence to it because you get proof from other people that you're okay, that you're that way. Your shadow is okay because other people have that shadow. And we're all the same here. We're all successful. And that's how you can have it all, is bringing gold to the shadow. You make your shadow into gold.
Bring the shadow into gold. Yep.
Booyah.
Bringing it to the light.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it, everybody. That's how you're going to go have what you want. Go find some friends. Go find some friends. Stop being a mean girl. Stop thinking girls are mean. Just kidding. I don't know about all that. I will say I don't know the exact solution for most people in this because it's hard. But I will say if you want to join the Living Adventures Collective, we're going to do this. I can't say what other people are going to do in their communities, but I know for a fact that everyone inside Living Adventures Collective is going to do all this stuff. So if you're at the top and you're lonely and you wish you had friends, but you think everyone's mean, and we're creating a group of girls who are not mean, or not even girls, just non-men, non-cis men group of people who are not mean and support you and don't judge you and bring gold to their own shadows so they can have whatever the fuck life they want. And make friends and hang out and go on vacation together.
Yeah.
Vibes.
You said it well.
And we do. So you can join the LAC using the link in our description if you want friends and you're tired of being lonely at the top. Other than that, that's it for us. Go follow us on Instagram and TikTok and like and subscribe.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.